I was never raised to question the medical community. So what doctors said was true because I thought I could trust these people. If there was a risk for me, they would tell me. Why would I question them? I had 3 courses of ciprofloxacin in 6 months. I should have never gotten that medication in the first place, almost half a year after I finished the last course of antibiotics. I was in pain all over, at least 60 different symptoms. Chest pain. How often did I go to the ER because I thought I had a heart attack? I had pressure, diarrhea, food intolerances, hair loss. I was losing hair in bundles, vision loss, joint pain, nausea. I had brain damage. I suffered from severe insomnia for 2 years. I did not sleep more than 2 hours a night. I could not explain all these things. And I said to my mom, I feel like I've been poisoned and I feel like I'm dying. I did not know that these physical symptoms would become much worse in the next 2 years. It's not alive. It's not alive. So many injured people out there who just don't know that they are injured. I've been suffering so much in the last 6 years, just fighting every day to have a somewhat normal life, to just survive. No one deserves anything like that. This is pure hell. This is hell on earth. The way that doctors treated me during these years was one of the most painful parts of that as well. Because no one believes you. Everybody thinks you're crazy. And you have nowhere to turn to. There is no help out there. It's not alive. It was taken away from me. And when I look at my life and the opportunities that I had and what I could have become and where I am now, I feel betrayed, and I feel they stole my life from me.
Welcome to our Expelled, everyone. For all of you who are watching, this is a channel that is dedicated to discussing the dangers that revolve around the pharmaceutical approach of medicine and sharing the stories of those who have witnessed firsthand the devastating impact that these drugs have on the mind, body, and soul. Joining me today is Anna. Hi, Anna. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. It's an honor to have any guest that has this experience that fell upon them to share their story so that other people know that this is real, that this is happening. If you could tell us a little bit about yourself, Anna, before this whole thing happened to you. How old are you? Where are you from? Just so we can get to know you a bit.
Yeah, my name is Anna. I live in Germany. I'm now 33 years old. I was 27 when I got injured by the drug that I took. I had a son. He was 4 years old at the time. He's now 10. So I'm living with that injury for the past 6 years. I've been a nurse before I got injured. I'm now a medical student to become a doctor, but the damage is so severe that I can't study at the moment. I've been very independent always. I was a single mother before. I enjoyed life. I enjoyed dancing, friends, even though life was not always easy. Like, it's not, that's just life. But I had a good life. I can say that. I had a good life until that point. Yeah.
Would you describe yourself as someone who knew how to deal with challenges that happen in life?
Oh, yes. Oh yes, definitely. I moved out of my parents' house when I was 16. So I was very young when I moved out. My family history is a bit complicated, and diseases and sicknesses and mental health as well. So there were definitely issues always in my life, but I was strong, I was mentally strong, and I went for for what I wanted. I just went for it. And I always achieved that. So, yes, I knew how to deal with not the most easiest situations in life. Yes.
What did you think about medicine in general before you decided to become a nurse? What was your perception of the medical system?
I was never raised to question the medical community. So, what doctors said was true. And then I was looking for what do I want to do in my life? And I thought, I want to help people. That's what I want to do. And I thought being a nurse, that's what I could do. Help people, be there for them, support them. And then I started, in Germany, it's an apprenticeship for 3 years. You work and you go to school. And I realized very early on that I can't help the people the way how I want to, because I don't have time. And, very restricted in our work as a nurse. We do what the doctors tell us to do. And I realized very quickly, doctors do not know everything. But okay, I cannot imagine doing this for the rest of my life. That's something I realized very early on. During my apprenticeship, I gave birth to my son. I finished my apprenticeship. I worked as a nurse for a year. And then I decided I would do something else.
That decision was to go into medical school eventually?
No. That decision was to study psychology.
Okay.
And in Germany, I don't know how you call that in English, but I have problems with my thought process and talking and speaking as well, and memory issues and word finding as well. So sometimes I will have, and then I need to take breaks.
That's okay. No problem.
I decided to study psychology, and therefore I had to go back to school. We have something in Germany, you can only go to a proper university if you made 13 years of school. So I did 10 years before I became a nurse. So I had to go back to school. That's what I did. And when I went to school, I was injured by that truck.
Okay.
And that's when my whole journey through began, actually. And I didn't know what happened to me, and doctors couldn't tell me what happened to me. And I figured out pretty quickly, we have so many not good doctors, to be honest, I was like, maybe I could become a better doctor. And I decided at that point, I want to become a doctor.
So basically that experience where you went for a medical examination and you were prescribed a medication that later on you realized was extremely dangerous, and you saw kind of the reckless demeanor in which doctors carry on their practice, that kind of motivated you to want to be better, to change the system,
yes.
Not to be a different doctor.
Yeah, I decided to become a doctor, but my goal was eventually to become a natural, holistic doctor. I wanted to deal with natural substances, plants and stuff like that, But before you're allowed to do that in Germany, you need to become a normal medical doctor like everyone else as well.
Yeah.
So I knew I had to go through this to be at the end, to be able to do what I really want to do.
Yeah, for me, it's I also was raised in a similar fashion. I had doctors in my family, and medicine and science. It's funny how always medicine is equated with having this strong, rigorous scientific kind of demeanor associated with it, when you realize afterwards that it's more of an orthodoxy, or it behaves much more like a religion than it is.
Yes,
science.
definitely.
But yeah, I was raised in a very similar situation, trusting doctors. Doctors are great. They save lives all the time. Medicine is great for you. Better living through chemistry. When I was a kid, I was diagnosed with ADHD, and I was prescribed, the doctors they told my parents that it's child abuse if we don't give this kid amphetamines. And I was given Adderall for 10 years, which had multiple effects on me. And I was not a happy kid on it. But I never, again, realized the actual, dangers that are kind of behind the scenes that we're not being told about. And yeah, I was a medic in the Army, and the IDF in my team. And that kind of got me into medicine. And right after I released from the military, I finished my service, I decided that I want to dedicate my life and be a doctor to help people. But my faith in the system was very whole and strong, and I didn't know that these things are happening. So I can understand that. So
I mean, I knew that doctors made a lot of mistakes. I saw that, but I never questioned the medication. You know.
Yeah, the thing is, I knew that doctors make mistakes as well, but I didn't realize the level of corruption, deceit, manipulation, and lies that the pharmaceutical industry is involved in. I didn't realize that you can literally lie, fake research, and release extremely toxic compounds on the market that can later end up just killing and maiming countless of people.
Yes, I was not aware of any of that either until, I can only say like that, I was woken up by that, injury. If you had tried to find out what's wrong with you, what happened to you, because this is not natural what happened to you. You've been healthy before. You can't be sick like that all of a sudden from one day to the other. Of course, you're trying to look for solutions. And then you find people who do question the medical establishment. And then you do your research and you realize, wow, this is all based on nothing, actually.
I do.
And
unfortunately.
Yeah. I'm still, when I look at my family and my friends, maybe they would call me radical now because I'm so, how do you say that? I don't trust doctors at all, not at all anymore. I'm scared going to doctors. I'm really scared because the abusive behavior that I experienced by them throughout these years. And maybe they would call me a bit crazy for what I believe is true today, but it's just because they don't do their research. They don't get the information. They just don't take the time to really get involved in this.
You think most people are not aware? You think most people are not aware of just how corrupt the system is, how dangerous the decision to accept a prescription medication is? I think they're kind of asleep.
Yeah, and part of that is because we are raised like doctors are gods in a white coat. We don't question them. We don't question what they do. They do what's right and what's good for us. They're there to help us. And that's all. That the pharmaceutical industry finances the professors at the university and what we are actually studying in our studies as a medical student, no one looks at that who doesn't really want to know.
Students especially, they don't question that. They don't know any of these things. They go to the lectures, they listen to what they're being told and taught, and they take it as the word of God, and that's it. And I know, as someone who's been in medical school for several years, how that goes. Unfortunately. So please, Anna, if you can take me back to what happened exactly. Why did you first even go to seeing that doctor who prescribed you that medication, what it was? Take us back there. Explain to us exactly what happened.
Yeah. It was at the beginning of 2014. I had a surgery on my nose for chronic sinusitis, and I had that surgery 7 years before already. I was suffering from chronic sinusitis, and so that was my issue that I was dealing with throughout the years. So I got that surgery, and after that surgery, I had a bleeding, and I got an infection. And the infection was treated with an antibiotic, but that antibiotic was not strong enough. So I was prescribed ciprofloxacin for, I think it was 10 days. And in these 10 days, I didn't really notice anything. I didn't feel anything. There are some people who take one pill and they are half dead. I didn't realize any changes. So the infection never went away. And I was dealing with that throughout the whole summer of 2014. So I went back to the doctors always, got a different antibiotic, and still didn't get rid of the infection. And then was prescribed ciprofloxacin again. So I had 3 courses of ciprofloxacin in 6 months.
Three
That
courses of ciprofloxacin in 6 months.
yeah, that is 60 tablets.
60
And I'm
tablets.
a small person. I'm 155 and I'm 49 kilogram. I'm a small person. It's not only that I got the ciprofloxacin, I got other antibiotics that definitely ruined my intestine, like my microbiota completely. It was wiped out. So I started in that summer, I started having anxiety and depression. I was suffering with a bout of panic and anxiety and depression a couple of years earlier. So I thought, maybe a relapse. And I didn't think much of it. It was a stressful time. I started going back to school. My son and I were alone. I had to do everything on my own. I had an au pair before that helped me look after my son. She was not there anymore. So I thought, okay, maybe this life circumstances. I'm very stressed. But one night in June, I woke up and in my mind, in my head, it was just, I'm going crazy, I'm going crazy, I'm going crazy. It was a loop. That thought didn't stop anymore. It was just, I'm going crazy, I'm going crazy. And I went to the bathroom and I was like, what is going on? Like I was still smoking at the time. I went to the balcony, had a cigarette. And then I went into my bedroom and if I go crazy, I could do something to my child. That was stuck in my head then. And I was terrified. And I have a half brother, he's schizophrenic. And I was like, okay, now it's just my time. I'm just going crazy,
Yeah.
So that day I had to write a test at school. I took my son to kindergarten and I went to school and I wrote that test, and then I called my parents and said, something is seriously wrong. You need to take my son and I have to go see a doctor. So that's what I did. I went to school. I picked up I went to school, wrote the test, picked up my son, took him to my family, and called a psychiatrist. Yeah.
Psychiatrist, yeah.
He said, okay, come and see me the next day. And then I went there, and this thought did not stop. I'm going crazy and I could harm my child. I'm going crazy. It just did not stop. It was there the whole time. And it was terrifying. It was so scary because I didn't know where was this coming from,
Can I ask you the timeline? So when you started having dealing with these intrusive thoughts, that happened, you said June. How long after your last course of ciprofloxacin?
I had my first course of ciprofloxacin in March.
Mm-hmm.
The last one in July. I don't know when was the second. The second was in between that time. Okay. So maybe April. I don't know. I have to look in my paper. I went to that psychiatrist and he said, oh yeah, but we will just have to see how it develops. You can take some herbs and then see how it goes. And I went home and I was like, I cannot wait and see how this goes because I might harm my child, because that's how it felt to me. I could do something to my kid. That anxiety, I cannot describe that. If something is going on in your head and you cannot identify with that at all, I love my son. He's my everything. I had no reason to think anything like that. Why in the world? What is going on? What happened? What's going on in my brain? I had bad pressure on my brain, like my brain was, someone would squeeze my brain.
You felt physical pressure on your on your brain. Okay.
It was probably intracranial hypertension, looking back now.
A lot of people that are affected by these compounds and they have neurological issues as a result experience this so-called pressure in the brain region. They feel tense, pressure, pain, dull aches there, and it's something that I've also, ever since my injury,
and especially the frontal lobe, like it was so bad. The pressure, I could not stand it. It was terrible. But the anxiety that came with these intrusive thoughts, I can't explain that. You go to sleep if you can go to sleep. I suffered from severe insomnia for 2 years. I did not sleep more than 2 hours a night. I woke up at nights with sheer panic. Like my body could not fall asleep because it felt like if I would fall asleep, I would just die. So my body always, when I was falling asleep, I got this wave of energy went through my body and I was like sitting up again. And for 2 years, I did not sleep more than 2 hours a night.
Just to clarify, these sorts of intrusive thoughts and behavior and these symptoms that you're describing, the pressure in your head and the insomnia, these are things that you did not experience before
Never.
in your life.
No, like I said, I had like an episode where I suffered from depression and a bit of panic, and I had therapy for that, and it went away. But that was not comparable in any form or way to what I experienced then. My wrist was hurting, I had joint pain. I could not explain all these things. And I said to my mom, I feel like I've been poisoned. I feel like I'm dying. I went from doctor to doctor. So that's when I started going to doctors. And everyone told me, you're fine, you're just stressed. It's psychological illness, you have a mental illness, you need to take tablets. And I said, I do not need to take tablets because this is something else. I knew from the very beginning, I'm not going to take any pharmaceutical, not any antidepressants, and not antipsychotics, nothing. Because this is something else. I knew that deep in my bones, and you have some kind of intuition as a human being. This is something else.
Yeah.
Started having psychotherapy with a really sweet lady. She's close to my heart. I don't know if I would have made it through this time without her and my best friend, because my best friend stayed on the phone with me all night long for almost 2 years, that I would not go completely nuts. And she always said, all this pain that I had pain in my neck and my shoulders were very achy, my headache, this pressure in my head, my joint aches. And she said, maybe it's just psychological, because who would think something else could have done that,
Let me ask you, the pain that you experienced in your joints. So musculoskeletal damage is something that it's a complication. It's known
tendons.
Yeah, and tendons as well. So when it's something that is known to be associated with exposure to fluoroquinolone antibiotics, when exactly, if you can remember, since you stopped taking the last pill, did you start experiencing also the physical effects, the joint pain?
It first started with depression and anxiety a bit before it started with these intrusive thoughts. So in March, I got the first cause. In April, it started with the depression kind of thing. In July, I had my last course of fluoroquinolones. And in October, I was ready to go into a mental hospital by myself because I thought I can't do it anymore. So I think it was October, December, where my wrist was hurting a lot. But I know for sure that at the beginning of 2015, I was in pain all over. Almost half a year after I finished the last course of antibiotics. I did not know that these physical symptoms would become much worse in the next 2 years, next 2 to 5, even 6 years.
So we're talking about a situation where even half a year after you finished, first started with neuropsychiatric issues and then progressed to physical symptoms and body-wide pain. And you're saying is something that continuously deteriorated over the years. It didn't stay stable. And thank you so that's something that a lot of people are not aware of, this phenomenon of delayed toxicity.
Yes. That's why I did not know what happened to me. If I would have taken a pill and I would have gotten these intrusive thoughts all of a sudden, or pain, then I would have connected the dots. Like, okay, there must be a connection. But that did not happen.
It took time.
So it took time. And that's why I did not know what happened to me. I could have avoided. I took one course, and I could have easily avoided the other 2 courses if I would have known. And then I was floxed another time in 2016, a simple UTI, and I was prescribed levofloxacin in 2016. And only in 2018, I figured out what happened to me.
I can completely confirm, first of all, this phenomenon in which the symptoms manifest after you cease the medication, because that is exactly what happened with me. When I was on the drug that I took, Iatrogenic, I started experiencing cognitive issues while I was on it, and then I stopped it immediately because I made the connection that it has to be the drug. And then about a month and a half after I stopped, just overnight, a period of, 30-something hours, my entire body fell apart. And it's this theme that you hear again and again with people taking the medication. Specifically, I know that this is happening. This is actually the most common theme with survivors of Accutane, that the damage happens after, sometimes weeks, months, or years after they stop. All these issues all of a sudden pop up. Like it sets a ticking time bomb on your DNA. And so you were saying that you at first you did these courses because of the infection that you had as a result of the surgery. Let me ask you, you tried first one antibiotic, right? And then he thought you need something stronger. But fluoroquinolones in general, there's guidelines to say that we use them as a last resort because they are very, very toxic. And that's why we want to minimize exposure as much as we can. Now, did he first of all warn you about these potential deleterious effects? And did he try other things after that first antibiotic?
No, in Germany, as far as I know, we have these strong warnings only since last year. There were warnings given out in 2014. We call them red letters. They are red letters. They're sent to doctors to warn them. In 2014, but that was after I was prescribed this medication, a warning came out. But it was not such a strong warning as we have now. So by 2016, when I got it for the UTI, he should have not prescribed that to me for a UTI. We know today, still doctors still do it. They still give it out like candy. I was never warned. I did not read the medication leaflet because I thought I could trust these people that they studied so many years. They know what they're doing. If there was a risk for me, they would tell me. That's what I thought. Why would I question that? When I go to a hairdresser, I'm not asking him, are you sure you can really color my hair in the right way? Or, I think, yeah, okay, he knows what he's doing. I'm going there. And then,
You expect a professional in his field, a master in his field, to know what they're doing and also to give you the appropriate information necessary for you to make an informed choice.
Exactly. And that was taken away from me. How was I ever able to make an informed decision when I had no information whatsoever?
And unfortunately,
if I would have known that these things, and since I have suffered from a bout of depression years before, I should have never gotten that medication in the first place. And the doctor knew that. It was written in my medical records that I had a depression years before, that I was suffering from a depression years before. I didn't anymore. I got over it with therapy and stuff. Like I said, life was not always easy, Yeah. So that was, and I think just looking back now, maybe it was drug induced already by then because I've been taking antibiotics my whole life. My immune system is not built as others. I don't know how many times I've taken ciprofloxacin or levofloxacin before. I only know that I've taken it 3 times in that time where I got so sick, and 1 time in 2016. So I don't know what happened before. The damage from fluoroquinolones are accumulative, so they build up, And some people experience serious damage with 1 pill, and some others take 100 pills, and they're fine. They don't feel the damage. The damage is there, and it's caused by the threat. We are all damaged by it. If you take it, you will be damaged by it because the way how the drug works. It does damage your mitochondria and your DNA.
For those who are interested, basically, the quinolone group of antibiotics, what they do is they work by preventing bacteria from replicating, from duplicating their DNA and unwinding it so it can be duplicated and then they can reproduce in this manner. And there's this enzyme called topoisomerase type 2, gyrase and topoisomerase type 4. And these are the enzymes that kind of cut the DNA and allow the replication process to take place. And these antibiotics target these enzymes. But the problem is that the mitochondria is kind of a bacterial remnant found in eukaryotic cells. In our cells, the cells that make us up. And they're using very similar enzymatic systems to replicate the DNA in the mitochondria. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist, thus, to understand that our cells are potential targets as well for these chemicals. And that's why so many people get injured. The damage, again, as you said, is not apparent so easily. And that's I'd like to get back with you.
What we have to mention when we talk about the mechanism is as well the fluoride, because that can cross the blood-brain barrier. And that's why it can cause these severe psychiatric issues and CNS damage. Our central nervous system is damaged. I have brain damage. I am pregnant right now with my second child. And after I deliver, I will get a SPECT scan because I want doctors to see that this brain is damaged. This is not the brain that I had before. I feel like I have dementia. I can't remember names. I can't find words. I lost a lot of my vocabulary. I was very good at articulating myself. I'm not anymore. And as a medical student, you need to be able to remember a lot of things.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, a lot of things.
And I just can't anymore. And that only happened so severely in the last 2 years. I'm pretty sure that I suffer from toxic encephalopathy, drug-induced. I have no proof for that yet. But I will definitely try and get proof for that when the baby is here.
And interesting for those who again don't know, these antibiotics have existed for several decades. Fluoroquinolone group of antibiotics. And
there are so many injured people out there who just don't know that they are injured. That really hurts my heart. People who they just suffer and they don't know why.
Yeah, and the problem with that is that again, there's been ongoing denial and cover-up by the medical establishment for years,
Yes.
and only recently, when we're talking about the FDA specifically, right? So only recently in 2016, there was a black box warning that was issued by the FDA, and it states that they found that when used systemically, the fluoroquinolone family of antibiotics, and I'm quoting, disabling and potentially permanent serious side effects that can involve tendons, muscles, joints, nerves, and the central nervous system. This is something that just has been introduced in 2016. Now, if people are naive enough to think that the companies that released these drugs on the market decades ago were not aware of the possibility of the effects happening, then they don't really understand the world they're living in, and that's the problem.
They existed since the 80s, I think. And of course, the pharmaceutical industry, they knew that they would kill people and poison us. They know it. And then, like people like you and me do jobs because we want to help people. And then we see what kind of world we're living in, actually. And that is very frustrating to me, and that sometimes makes me feel so helpless because I'm thinking I'm giving birth to my children and they live in a world that they often have no control over and they don't even know what's going on. You can't raise them in fear, and you can only try to make them aware of not everything that looks like it is like it.
Let me take you back a bit to after you started having, in addition to the neuropsychiatric issues, you started experiencing the body-wide pain. You've mentioned that over the years, things got worse. If you can please go into detail on that exactly, how that happened, what did you start feeling? And also, I think people don't really comprehend how devastating the emotional aspect is of having to undergo this type of poisoning and realizing that your body is kind of falling apart with no control over it. So if you could please go into detail about that and explain to the viewers here what it's like.
Our brain is a beautiful organ, and some things we just don't remember because they were too difficult to cope. I think that I suffer from some kind of PTSD because of what I've experienced. I do not know everything anymore, but I know that I suffered from at least 60 different symptoms. I have vision loss. I have blurry vision. I had, I don't know in English, tinnitus, I had pressure, diarrhea, food intolerances, nausea. This nausea is, I can't even explain that, for days and days. Chest pain. How often did I go to the ER because I thought I had a heart attack? This chest pains that went down in my left arm. I have vision loss. I have blurry vision. Pain everywhere. And the people that lived with me, my au pair, when I started medicine, I had to move to a different city to the south of Germany. So my friends and family, they were here, and I was there with my son. And my au pair came from the Ukraine, and he always had to drive me to the hospital. You are in pain every day. I said, yes, I know. I'm in pain every day. And people who are chronically suffer from pain, they know what that means. There were days I couldn't get up, and I had to tell my son, I can't get up. because I'm in so much pain and I'm so nauseous. My vision deteriorates further and further. I can hardly see without my glasses anymore. I didn't have, one of the typical symptoms is the tendon damage that people experience who take fluoroquinolones. I had only had that mild. So I never had ruptures. I always have, once in a while, I get tendonitis in my plantar fasciitis and my hand. For me, it was body-wide pain, muscular pain, and nerve pain in my face. Times when I felt like the headache and the nerve pain was so strong that I felt like I had a stroke because I couldn't move my mouth anymore.
It sounds maddening. It sounds absolutely
And
maddening.
nights where I thought I would not wake up tomorrow. To be so scared about your life. And I have responsibility for my son. I want to see him grow up, and maybe not being able to do that. I suffered from severe brain fog almost from the beginning on. So the cognitive issues this memory loss that started about 2 years ago now. So that was 4 years into floxing already. But the brain fog was there the whole time. I see colorful dots. I have this blurry vision. There were so many symptoms. When I would go to a doctor, they would say, that doesn't fit to anything. It's just too much. I had hair loss. I was losing hair in bundles. We know that it's a chemotherapy, actually.
Yeah.
Something like that. I was losing hair in bundles and I didn't know what was going on. Like I said, it's about 60 plus symptoms. I have, when I went to the doctors, I made a list because I would forget half of it. So if I would take it out now, I could read that to you. But it's more than 60 symptoms.
It's always interesting. What I've noticed is with so many of these drug injuries, there's a niche specifically for that kind of characterizes this drug injury. So with fluoroquinolones, the classic symptom is the tendon ruptures and damage to connective tissue. But in the end, there's always this spectrum that everybody experiences of body-wide damage affecting all systems from all these different toxic drugs. So, for example, you talked about having these coloring in your vision, these flashy spots, visual snow, if I'm not mistaken. That's how.
Yeah, that as well.
And I've experienced exactly the same thing. And you talked about this brain fog. Explain to people that don't understand what is it like to have this brain fog.
I can't think clearly. It feels like you're surrounded by a cloud and you can't really get through that cloud. Like apart from that, I suffered from depersonalization and derealization. So I always felt like something is around me. I can't get outside. I feel like I'm living in a bubble. Yeah. And my thought process is, I'm not a dumb person. If you want to study medicine in Germany, you need to have a little bit of brain. So easy things to figure out was difficult for me. If I read one page in a book, I have to read it over and over again to really understand what is written there. And I can't go to a store where they sell perfumes anymore because I get so dizzy. Normal shopping is very exhausting for my brain. If I don't know the shop and I don't know where I can find stuff, and I have this very bright light and different scents in my nose, I'm overwhelmed. It's like the filter is gone. My brain can't decide anymore what information is important and what is not important. So it all goes in, and I'm like, oof, that is too much. I don't know how to handle that. I can't even explain. To be honest, it's not a life. The life that I'm living for the past 6 years is not a life. That I'm pregnant again now is like a world wonder. I didn't get my period anymore for more than 1 day. Yeah, I'm 33. My doctor told me you maybe come too early in premenopause. I was like, what? I'm 33. Like, I was 30 at that time. It's not a life. It's not a life. My worst enemy, if your brain doesn't function anymore, the pain, the daily pain, and the brain not functioning anymore, it's not a life. It was taken away from me. And when I look at my life and the opportunities that I had and what I could have become and where I am now, I feel betrayed, and I feel they stole my life from me. And at that point now, I am in the process of diagnostic for neuromuscular disease. So I show signs for ALS. And we know that ALS is fatal 100% of the time. ALS is a neurological disorder, and no one knows why it appears there are different theories as well. And I know a couple of people now who believe their ALS was caused by fluoroquinolones. A few as well that I know of that took Accutane, who believe their cause for ALS was Accutane. I have to mention that while I was taking the ciprofloxacin, I had a steroid nasal spray as well. They prescribed me steroids with ciprofloxacin. We know today that's the absolute worst that can happen to you, that you take fluoroquinolones and a steroid. So it went straight into my brain and just messed up my brain. Where my life is going to go and how much time I have left, because the diagnostic is not over, but everything else was ruled out. So I have muscle twitches. Last year it began with muscle twitches. So my whole body's twitching. My arms was getting weaker. The doctor diagnosed me with vocal fold atrophy. So my voice is going. I can't swallow as much, as good as I used to before. I always need to drink when I eat. I'm losing my voice. So it looks like bulbar ALS. But I have no proper diagnostic yet, because doctors want to be sure that this is it before they say that, because that is a death sentence.
I can't imagine the strength and the perseverance that you have.
I will die from that in the next years. I know what killed me, and I know what's written on my gravestone. You know, I was murdered by ciprofloxacin in the pharma industry. I will have to leave my kids behind. And I think that's the most difficult thing for me to think about, is because I will not be able to protect them. And I will not be able to see them grow up. And excuse me.
Okay, please. I know it's so hard.
I will not be able to live the life that I thought I would have if I would just become sick now and have ALS, and I would have lived a proper life the last 6 years. I would say, oh, bad luck, huh? But I've been suffering so much in the last 6 years, just fighting every day to have a somewhat normal life, to just survive. And to end up with something like that would definitely take my life is worse than the worst nightmare. Sometimes I'm laying in my bed and I'm thinking, like, what in the world have you done to deserve this? You know, like what have I done? Because no one deserves anything like that. I don't want to wish this on anyone.
Except for maybe those that knew of these things happening and lied about it and released it to the public for the sake of money alone.
Even to them, I don't wish this, because this is pure hell. This is hell on earth. I've been fighting the last 6 years to have a somewhat normal life. You know, my emotions were gone. I had no emotions anymore at the beginning. They were gone. I was numb, except from anxiety. I fought every day to have a somewhat normal life, and so that other people probably thought that I would just live a normal life. People who didn't know me. You know, I didn't look sick, but the emotional struggle that comes with this is, I think, more than. And you know, I've always said, and I've only found out 2018 that I was floxed. I met some people online in these self-help groups, and you know, we had a little group and we became friends. One guy only took one pill and couldn't walk for 3 months. He was bedbound for 3 months because of one pill. And we always thought floxing is the worst thing that can happen to you. That's what we thought. At that point, the neurological damage didn't show like it does now. And now I'm thinking I would even live with a floxing damage for the rest of my life if that would mean that I could stay here and see my kids grow up, you know. If this takes my life, then this is how it is. But I'm trying not to think about it. I'm trying to take day by day. I had to move back into my parents now because I can't do it alone anymore. I'm 33. I would probably never become a doctor anymore. No. I had the opportunity to have a good life, and it was taken from me. And not only that, the opportunity to have a good life was taken from me. Maybe to even have a life. People get killed by these drugs. and don't even know it. To me, I can't understand how these drugs can still be on the market, how they can still be given out, even though with restrictions. And we know that doctors don't act like that all the time. You know, people are getting more aware, but they're still handed out. More mothers, more kids that will lose their mothers. My son didn't have a normal mother in the last 6 years. My son was always worried about me because of the pain and everything, because you can't hide that pain. That pain is something else. You cannot hide it. How often do you try not that your kids don't see you sick, or, you know, so they don't have to worry about you? But this is something you cannot hide. You can't hide that. He is so worried about me, and he's really scared of losing me. But we talk about life and death, and that's something I think is a blessing somehow, that we get to talk about these things, that death as well is a part of life, you know, and some people have to go earlier than others. And there's only one positive thing that came out of it, and that is when I realized that my thought process and my thoughts when I couldn't identify with them anymore, you know, when I thought I was going crazy, I could do something to my child, I was like, that's not me. So who am I if I'm not my thoughts? And that led me to a spiritual path. And that's the only positive thing that came out of this whole nightmare, is that I think about life differently now. I have a body, but I'm not my body. You know, even if I have to leave my body, I will be around in some form. I am energy. We are energy. We know energy can't just disappear. You know, that's the only positive thing that came out of it, is that it led me to look at life in a different way and to really question my existence here on Earth. Yeah, but it doesn't make it any better at the end.
Suffering is there, and it's just almost sometimes impossible to ameliorate it. I know. First of all, I want to thank you for sharing this with us, because I think this is exactly the message that people need to hear. That this is a real person. This is a real human being here sharing her account, what happened to her, because she chose to put her trust in her doctor. And this is not rare. This is not 1 in a million. This is not something that doesn't happen. Unfortunately, it happens all the time, everywhere around.
Yes, every day. Every day.
Your doctor won't share with you testimonies like this, like what you are right now sharing with us.
No.
In fact, a lot of them would deny that any of these things ever happened in the first place. And that's another thing I wanted to ask you is, you said you were gaslit by doctors after this happened to you. You said that you were treated in a manner not befitting. What was your experience with physicians afterwards? What did you...
I've probably seen 50 doctors since then. All kinds of doctors. I have heart issues as well. I've arrhythmia. So every system in my body is damaged. And every doctor, most of the doctors that I've seen, and, you know, when you come with that list of symptoms, they're like, you crazy. That's all in your head. And, you know, this is not in my head, because I was healthy before, pretty much healthy before. I had chronic sinusitis, but other than that, I was healthy, very athletic, sporty. The way that doctors treated me during these years was one of the most painful parts of that as well, because no one believes you. Everybody thinks you're crazy, and you have nowhere to turn to. There is no help out there. You know, you just feel helpless, and that's often how I feel still today. I'm helpless. I just feel helpless. I'm doing everything that I can to getting into the literature and research and taking all the supplements that I can, and, you know, lifestyle changes and meditation and everything that you can do all by yourself. I'm injecting my vitamins now, stuff like that. But there is no one that can help you, lead you, you know, and tell you maybe you should try this way, because that could have happened. Maybe that's what happened to you. My last GP now said, he is a very young guy, around my age, and he was the first one who said, yes, the fluoroquinolones are this is the cause for your issue.
The first one.
Poison. Yeah, it was the first one. It's poison. It's pure poison. He was the first one. and we have a very good environmental doctor here in Germany, very famous. And I wrote him an email, and the first thing he said is, "You're floxed." I said, "Yeah, I figured that out by now as well." But that was the second doctor that knew what happened to me. He didn't even see me, only by what I described him. He said, "You're floxed."
When did you first realize this epiphany that, oh my God, for sure, 100%, that this is what happened to me. I was destroyed by this drug. There's no denying that. When did you realize that? Did you have to go to the internet to talk to other people? How did you realize these things?
Okay, the third cause of ciprofloxacin I took while I was on vacation in Mallorca, Spain. And I was told I should not go into the sun with that medication. So I said, okay, I will not go into the sun. I was always under my umbrella sun, in the shade. I managed not to be in the sun. But one night, my whole body started tingling. My whole body was tingling, and I started having issues to breathe and pure anxiety. And I was there with my friend, and she said, "Should I call the ambulance? What is going on?" I said, "I don't know what's going on. Everything is burning and tingling, and I can't breathe, and I'm scared." So that was a reaction to the fluoroquinolone, but I didn't know that. So the next day I went to a German doctor there, and I said to him what happened. And then he said, "Do you take any medication?" I said, "Yes, this." And then he said, "Do you know what medication you're taking?" I was like, "No, why?" He said, "That can cause tendon ruptures even years later." That's the only thing he said. I said, "Okay, yeah, don't go into the sun." If he would have said, "Don't ever take this again," and this is so, maybe I would have connected at that point, but I didn't. But I kept in mind, or I could remember, it causes tendon ruptures. So I've never stopped researching what could be possibly wrong with me. And then I was on the internet, and I read that article, and it was saying tendon ruptures, and then all these symptoms, and I was like, that's me, and I realized that is me. That's what happened to me. I had all these symptoms, and then the stuff with this tendon rupture, and then I said, okay, I need to get more information about this drug. So I went on Facebook, and I got into these groups, and then I decided to write my health insurance so they could print out for me what medication I got in the last years. And they sent me the information, and it said March, July, and in between. And then I realized, okay, this is the time where I got sick. I've been sick ever since. Every symptom that is described, I experienced. This is what happened to me, and I broke down and I cried and I cried and I cried. And that's what I say when I say we have some knowledge, this intuition. And I just knew at that point, yes, I finally have an answer to what happened to me. I knew it. I broke down because I was devastated, because I knew that this is not something I could redo. I could not hear that. Some people hear, some people never hear. I obviously don't hear because I've been sick for so long. But that's when I knew, that's
I remember when I got hurt, I realized immediately that it kind of is the drug, the Accutane. And then I remember going online, because obviously I was not getting answers from reputable scientific sources that all claim that what happened to me is not a real thing. And I talked to several dermatologists that all denied it. And then, you find this shady forum on the internet, and what do you know? Countless people describing the exact same history as you have. And you realize, the truth. You realize that people are stuck like this for years. They start posting the science backing up these claims as to why it does what it does. And you realize, damn, I am fucked. Like my life will never be the same again. And it's a huge slap to the face, right? It shakes you to your core. Right? When you realize that, oh my God, I have been forever altered. My body has been raped at the cellular level, and there's nothing.
Because before you somehow still hoped that things would get better. You were fighting every day, trying to find solutions, trying to just make it to the next day, to maybe find a solution then. And then you are confronted with the truth. Knowing that your mitochondria, which is the most important part in your body actually is damaged. And throughout these years, I had genetic tests done. I know that I cannot detoxify very well. I have polymorphisms in phase 1 and 2 detoxification. That's probably a reason as well why I got so damaged, because my body was not able to really, it's not able to detoxify very well. You see the signs, it all makes sense, it all fits together perfectly, and you realize, shit, I have not healed by now. It's getting worse. There was nothing you can do, actually. Nothing. You looking for doctors. I found some good holistic doctors. You can try different things like ozone and hyperbaric oxygen chamber and IV treatments. And, there are doctors who maybe can, and that's what I'm saying. We are all different. One story is not like the other, but we all experience same, similar issues. But we are not, the way how the body can heal is different for everyone. We are genetically made up differently. My body is not I was not born with the best genetics. Some I have better genetics and they are able to heal. Not everybody is damaged for life.
We also have our own Achilles heel, everybody. So for example, I can tell you that I was born genetically blessed. Everybody on sides of my family, both sides, were extremely healthy people. We only had one cancer case with my grandfather from my father's side, but he smoked for 50 years, 2 packs a day, and he got the cancer at the age of 88. So it's not a surprise, when you smoke so much for so many decades, and getting the cancer at that old of an age is, I guess, considered acceptable. But other than that, my family, everybody is extremely healthy, robust, fit, strong individuals, smart people. And nobody in my family, close or far, had anything resembling the health issues that I have to deal with. And it's interesting because with every other thing in my life, I dealt very, very good. Nothing really affected me that badly. But my Achilles heel was retinoids. And all it takes, and that's why I want people to listen to this, that all it takes is for you to encounter that single pharmaceutical that your body cannot handle. You can take many, many drugs before, and that's how they do this. They market and push these so-called innocuous drugs like Tylenol or Advil or whatever. They get you used to taking these pills, and you associate the connection that you make is a pill is okay. It makes my pain go away. And that's all dandy and fine until you encounter that single pill that will destroy you. And so people need to understand that.
My father always says, it's so unimaginable that you're so sick. Our whole family was never sick. Yeah, we had some cancer cases, but they all recovered. And he said, you're the only one who's so sick. And when I tell him, because I was poisoned, it's hard for him to get that, to wrap his mind around it and to understand that she was really poisoned. Like, it's not her fault. People don't understand, not even your family.
What is the impact that this had on your social life with friends, with family? Did friends believe you? Did your family believe you? Did everybody just think you're crazy? Because for me, my family still to this day doesn't really believe that what happened to me is as severe as it is, if at all. And I've lost a lot of people on the way.
Yeah, me too. I don't really have friends anymore. I have 1 or 2 that I still talk to. If someone is chronically sick, you don't have much fun. Much stuff to talk about that is fun, And people don't want to deal with someone who always has to complain about something over years and years and years. And I understand that to a certain degree. But what can I do? I'm tired of saying I'm good and I'm not good. Because I'm not good. It makes you very lonely. I just posted something on Facebook the other day. It's been 6 very lonely years. Very lonely. Because no one understands you. No one can help you. Some people just don't believe you. And because I've been such a strong individual always in my life, I tried to go through this alone as well. I had no help. I had no emotional support. And because I didn't know what happened to me, other people just thought maybe it's just mental. Who knows, And even to this day now, where I have to face that my life might be over in a few years. My father do he takes it much more serious now, and he's very scared. But I think he can't let that close to his heart, because it would just devastate him. That there are other people who ruined my life, you know. Yeah, it's a very lonely life. You know, we have coronavirus, everybody is at home. And for me, nothing has changed. I've been living this life the way how I'm living now for more than a year, because I was almost bedbound. I had no energy anymore. You know, I couldn't go to university anymore. All I was able to do was cook for my son, do the washing and the shopping. And the rest of the day I had to sleep. So I can only say, and I've been saying that to people, the life that you guys are living now is something that I've been living for more than a year. And for me, it's my normal. You know, I am isolated. I've been isolated for so long.
Yeah, I know. I can relate.
It makes you very lonely. It's a very lonely place to be in. And that's why I think in these Facebook groups where you can find people who suffer the same things, and we've been 4 people from all over the world. One was from American, one was from London, the other one was from the Ukraine, I was from Germany. We had our group and we talked, and we could talk about the things that we had in common, you know, because we understood each other. We knew and we understood what that other person was going through. And that's very important if you're chronically sick. I think that you have a few people who understand what you're going through, because it's very lonely life.
How many people have you seen in these groups? I mean, what are we talking about? Are we talking about a significant number of people that are found?
Thousands. There are thousands of people in these groups.
Thousands of people.
Yeah, and there are people dying from these things, and there are people committing suicides because they can't take that life the way that they have to live it now anymore.
We had a member in my group. I won't bring up his name now because I don't know if it's appropriate. But we have a support group for people that have been hurt by Accutane. And unfortunately, we lost a member 2 weeks ago who took his own life just at the age of 22 because of a medication prescribed for nothing more than pimples. I don't find that acceptable. I find it twisted, evil, and vile beyond belief. And it kind of makes me, this whole corona pandemic going on around, not to try to diminish its importance, but people are being slaughtered in the hundreds of thousands to over 1 million each year just from taking medications as prescribed.
Yes.
And nobody is raising an eyebrow on it. Nobody's batting an eyelash over this. It's quite insane.
Yeah, and that's why I think your work is very important. I'm thankful that you're doing this, because it can only change if people really speak up and say what happened to them.
Exactly.
It has to actually form like a movement, to say that we cannot accept this any longer. We know how big pharma is, and we know how corrupt, and you have to be careful what you're saying about these people. We know that there are doctors, holistic doctors, they are being killed for telling the truth. It is dangerous to talk about these things, and we have to keep that in mind. This is huge, this is big, this is not just you and me. There is so much money involved, and we know that everything just is about money. Actually, when it comes, when you look at it, it's all about money. It's the root of all evil. And I feel personally, I'm very thankful that you're doing what you're doing, but I personally never felt like I want to put my energy into this fight, because I'm fighting so hard to just survive every day,
I know. I completely understand that. For me, I needed to find a calling, something that can give me a reason to stay here. And I always liked to fight. I always was a fighter, and I always enjoyed a good fight. And what's better than to fight against impossible odds? So to me, it gives me a reason to wake up, to be here. And hopefully also I want to become a father, even though I'm sick and ill and feel very bad, and so is my partner. But we want to bring someone into this world who is wise and brings light to all this darkness. That to me would be a victory over what has happened. So,
and I'm very sure this will happen. Me being pregnant now is something I could have never imagined in the last years. Never. I didn't even think my body was capable of doing that. And it is a little wonder.
So
It's America, yeah. And I'm sure this child will be here for a reason, even though I might not be here for much longer. But my kids, they will be here for a reason. And, you can be a bit spiritual. The devil always takes the strong ones, and that's why I know we will win this. Even if I'm gone, my kids will be strong individuals.
Yeah.
And I want them to know what happened to me as well. Because my son knows I was harmed by pharmaceuticals, and he knows that it might kill me. But my daughter, she will be born in July, and if I really only have a few years left, she will never get to know me, really. She will not be able to remember us. And these things, like this interview, will be very important for her, I think.
Definitely. I wanted to ask you 3 questions to summarize what we've been talking about. Your message to the following people. What would you have to say to doctors and healthcare practitioners that are watching this right now? What would be your message to them?
You promise to do no harm, and please keep this promise. Do no harm. And if you're not sure if what you're doing can cause harm, get informed. Don't be lazy. Don't just get out of university and have that knowledge and stay with that knowledge for the rest of your life. Always get informed again. You need to have the newest research, and you have to be updated. And if people come to you and tell you something is wrong with me, believe them, because we as patients know very well what's wrong with us, even though we might not know what caused it, but we know what's going on with us. We have that intuition, and it's better to say, I don't know what's wrong with you, than to say it's all in your head, because if a doctor tells me, I don't know what's wrong with you, I appreciate that very much, because some doctors think they know everything and you're just a patient, you don't know nothing. Yeah, as a patient, we do know a lot of things, because we in this body since we are born. We know if something is wrong, So if something is wrong, believe us. And if the science is out that this medication can ruin someone's life, just don't give it out, only if it's a life or death situation when it comes to fluoroquinolones. If there's no other choice, then do it. But even then, give the patient the right to make that last decision. Inform them properly. Tell them what could happen to them, so they know what risk they are taking. Yeah, believe your patients. Listen to them when they tell you, I think I have an adverse reaction to a medication.
Thank you. What would be your message to the everyday citizen, the public, that people that are just going to their doctor's visits right now and offered a prescription drug? What would you tell these people?
First of all, take responsibility for your health. And that means get informed of how you can live a healthy lifestyle, how you can live a healthy life. Once you become old, stay out of hospitals and doctors' offices.
Stay out of hospitals and doctors' offices if you want to go.
Yes.
I understand.
Try to support your body in a way that it can heal itself, because our body is a thing that can heal so much. You just have to give it the right nutrients and the right. If you go to a doctor and you just want something to go away and you just take a pill because you think that's going to make it, that's not life, and that's not how you should look after your body. It requires a bit of effort to stay healthy, and a pill is not when you're sick, you don't have a pharmaceutical deficiency. There is wrong. You have to get that in balance again. And if you go to a doctor, question everything that he's doing. Question it. Get informed, go on the internet before you take that drug and read about it. Because if I would have done that, I would have known I should have not the support groups already when I got injured, and too many injured people.
So you're saying if you would have done your homework and not trusted your doctor blindly, then you would have not been in the situation that you are in right now.
Exactly.
And what would you say to other victims of drugs who see this? Do you think that they should come up, speak up, not stay in silence?
It's very important that we all tell our stories. That we become, that these victims, that, this 1 out of 100,000 is not just a number, that we had lives to live. And it's very important that other people see that this is tragic. This is very tragic what we experience. We should not hide, gaining back our power, taking the responsibility that we have to take for our health, because we're injured and no one believes us. We have to take the responsibility for that. But to say as well, I'm not gonna let this doctor talk to me like this anymore, because if a doctor now tells me some crappy stuff, I'm walking off this, I'm just talking to me again. It's important. Don't lose hope. I think that's very important. Don't lose hope, even though maybe sometimes it's hopeless. Don't lose hope. Speak up. Speak up. Because that's how we take our power back. I think, we've been abused by saying what we have experienced. When you're sick for so many years, you become an expert, about your sickness. So, knowledge of people I've met on the internet, they know much more than most of the doctors, and that's what happened to me as well. I'm not a doctor. I studied for a few semesters now, but I went to my general practitioner and he said, you know much more about that than I do. Yeah, exactly. So that's why you should listen to me. All these other victims, they know so much. They're so knowledgeable. They should come forward and show what they know. Show that we are not crazy. We are intelligent people, and it's not a story that we're making up.
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you very, very much for being brave and courageous and coming up here and speaking your truth, letting people know what happened. I think you're doing something immensely important and honorable, and I respect it greatly. And I wanted to say that I'll keep you in my prayers, and I sincerely hope that you will have still many years left to be a mother and give love both to your son and your daughter that is going to be born soon. And I hope that somehow the tides will turn. You will start feeling some relief. I truly do, as I do for everybody else who comes up here to speak.
Yeah. I wish that for you as well. I hope that you will lead a normal life one day and that you will be healthy again. And having a similar situation, I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be there for the people like me, people who are chronically ill, not knowing what's going on with them. And knowing that there are people out there like me who maybe have the opportunity to really be that, gives me hope. Knowing there will be good doctors out there, and that's really satisfying for me to know.
Thank you so much for coming here.